The white pieces in game 2, of course, Duda will have the white pieces, a total of 4 games to decide the match. And here we go, the finals has started.
Yeah, the end of the 2021 season, it is imminent now because the games have started. It's a Queen's Pawn opening from Magnus Carlsen. Will we see the Queen's Gambit? Will we see the Nimzo Indian defence? It's the Queen's Gambit. What a way to end the tour finals. Yeah, with the Queen's Gambit, especially after the year we've had.
Yeah, but OK, here we have an unusual move because after pawn takes pawn, well, knight takes pawn was on the board. Not the most common move.
No, but a trendy one, the semi-Tarrasch defence. And now Magnus, instead of pushing pawns in the centre, instead of initiating really direct play, after a set of pawn trades, has just solidified his pawn centre. And a couple more pawns have left the board. We have actually almost seen a transposition to the Caro-Kann defence, to the C3 Sicilian, to other openings. Both players definitely have prepared. And wow, Magnus Carlsen has sacrificed a pawn. Black, with his last move, just brought his queen out, attacking a white pawn. Look at the C-line right now. Black's queen is eyeing up a pawn. Magnus just said, I don't care. I'm not going to defend it. So huge, huge tension already at this early stage. Magnus, with his rook move, tempting Duda to take a pawn, but Duda said no. He wasn't brave enough. He didn't take that pawn because that would have cost a lot of time with the black queen.
Yeah, and I have to say, suddenly we are in the territory, not of quite a novelty, but it's only ever been played once before.
Are you surprised by this last move, Jovanka? White is still maintaining this offer of a free pawn. But now it's even more tempting to grab this pawn for black, because if black's queen comes and takes that white pawn, just zooms down this line, suddenly it's check, and white can't block the check. If white blocks with a piece, then white actually loses further material. White would lose another piece. White, I think, has to move the king.
You called it, David, at the beginning. You were like, OK, yeah, it's on the board. But, I mean, here is like the case of the mind games. Yeah.
The reason I would have taken that pawn automatically is because here black has so many different moves. Black could retreat the queen. Black could bring his bishop out to several squares. Yes, white might have studied this position. Yes, it might still be promising for white. But Magnus can't have analysed everything in depth and has a winning advantage. So Magnus needs to attack now, and that attack involves pushing Harry the h-pawn up the board.
Already?
Yeah, pushing this h-pawn. That means that Magnus actually wants to develop his rook in the corner. That white rook, he wants to shift it up the board. White's not going to castle anymore, so the rook is not going to come towards the centre of the board. It's going to lift itself up and shift across. And this is really creative. This is a unique position, as Jovanka mentioned.
OK, Duda, castles kingside.
Meanwhile, Magnus has chosen one of the candidate moves that we were discussing. White has lifted up his rook. So not the traditional way we see a rook develop itself, but from here, the rook could just swing across one square, maybe, eye up the black king. Also, indirectly, there are threats against black's queen right now.
Bishop takes pawn, check, and invite the king to take a step forward.
So right now, black has moved his knight to the side. If he hadn't done this, for example, if he just pushed a pawn, then we would have seen white play bishop takes pawn, check. And after the king recaptures, the knight would jump out the way. And now we see why white's rook positioned itself on the third rank. It's eyeing up the black queen. This would have been a deadly discovered attack. Black's knight is a bit stuck, and now white has taken the opportunity to leap into the centre. And again, look at this, an X-ray vision attack against the black queen. Again, a huge threat now. Black has to move this queen away, because if he doesn't, if Duda gets careless, then suddenly bishop takes pawn, check. Would win the black queen. So Duda right now has to avoid this trap. He has to retreat this queen away in this direction or in this direction if he wants to save the game.
And he retreats to the edge of the board.
Actually, right now, there might be a direct way forward, a direct continuation. First, Magnus starts by bringing his rook across. Very sensible. That rook already is making the black king feel very uncomfortable.
Of meeting white's threats. Because if you touch your knight, then suddenly the queen will come forward. So you don't want to be doing that. OK, so he sidesteps with his king into the corner.
And Magnus immediately developing his bishop. Look at this. White's knight in the centre of the board is beautiful. It's imperious. It's dominating everything. That's what you defined as an octo-knight, Jovanka, controlling 8 great squares. Now, look at the 2 white bishops. The white light-squared bishop pointing towards the black king. This dark-squared bishop now about to remove black's best defender, the knight. White's queen getting ready to jump into the action. White's rooks also both on great lines. If you look at black's rook in the top left corner, doing nothing. Black's light-squared bishop still asleep. Black's queen offside. Nearly every time he converts this, 9 times out of 10 pretty much, he'll win a position like this one.
On Instagram says that they will also be rooting for Wesley, so really hope to see him become champion. OK, and the queen has moved.
But first, Jovanka, White did sacrifice a piece. White gave up his bishop. And then he brought his queen out. So Magnus right now is a whole piece down.
Wow.
He's a whole bishop down. But look at the white queen. Look at the white rook next to her. Look at the white knight in the centre of the board. They are shifting towards that black king. Meanwhile, what are black's pieces doing? I don't see that black queen ever rejoining the action in time. White's big threat in the current position is actually to just shift the white queen up one square and then go for that weak black pawn on the H-line in front of the black king. That pawn is defenseless. I think it's almost game over, and that is reflected in the evaluation bar. +7 right now. Virtually game over, only 18 moves in.
Yeah.
Masterpiece by Magnus so far. Wow. Talk about a fast start.
Yeah. And if I'm going to blame something, I think it would be capturing that pawn. That was offered. I mean, it was just the continuation was perhaps a little bit too precise for Duda to navigate.
Yeah, I think he should have taken it. I'm glad he took it just from a spectator's point of view. It's really instructive to show that, OK, you can give up pawns, and the time that it takes your opponent to steal these pawns gives you enough time to attack. But oh, wow, OK, just as I say that, we do see a result, I think. Jan-Krzysztof Duda has resigned after only 18 moves. Magnus Carlsen wins the game.
What a start to the Tour Finals for world champion Magnus Carlsen, winning the first game against Jan-Krzysztof Duda. A tough start for the 23-year-old. He will have the white pieces in the next game.